The Boeing P-26 Peashooter was a unique and important aircraft in the history of the United States Army Air Corps, a precursor to the U.S. Air Force. Developed in the early 1930s, it was the first American all-metal production fighter aircraft and the first to be designed as a monoplane, that is, with a single main wing assembly. Prior to the P-26's arrival, the Army Air Corps primary fighter aircraft was the Curtiss P-6 Hawk, a biplane constructed primarily of wood and fabric. While such biplanes were maneuverable, they were also increasingly outpaced by advances in bomber aircraft designs. The monoplane design and metal construction of the P-26 represented a significant departure from the traditional biplane fighters, offering a higher top speed and greater structural strength, though at the cost of some maneuverability. These characteristics filled an urgent need for the Army Air Corps for a more modern, faster interceptor, capable of catching and engaging with the latest bombers of the time. The P-26 was designed with an open cockpit, a fixed landing gear, and externally braced wings. These features were seen as somewhat antiquated even at the time of its introduction, but they were chosen due to the Army Air Corps' familiarity and comfort with these design elements, as well as the ease of maintenance they provided. It was a relatively compact aircraft, with a length of approximately 23.7 feet and a wingspan of 27.7 feet. It was powered by a single Pratt Whitney R1340 Wasp radial engine, providing 600 horsepower and enabling the aircraft to reach a top speed of 234 miles per hour, a significant improvement over the biplane fighters it replaced. The P-26 was designed to be flown by a single pilot. Despite the open cockpit design, it was one of the first fighters to be equipped with a fully enclosed canopy, although the USASC specified that the canopy be made removable due to concerns about emergency exit. Instrumentation was basic, including flight controls, engine gauges, and a compass. They were initially fitted with a combination of 30 and 50 caliber machine guns, typically one of each, mounted in the fuselage and firing through the propeller arc, using synchronization gear to prevent the guns from shooting the propeller. Later versions replaced the 30 caliber gun with a second 50 caliber gun for increased firepower. Additionally, the P-26 could carry a small load of bombs, up to 200 pounds, for use in a ground attack role. There were three main variants of the P-26. The initial production model was the P-26A, of which 111 were built. The P-26B and P-26C featured engine improvements and minor changes to the armament. 46 P-26Bs were built, and 23 of the P-26As were upgraded to the P-26C standard. The P-26 entered service in 1934 and was initially popular with pilots, who appreciated its increased speed and improved visibility compared to the biplanes it replaced. However, it was also quickly recognized that it was not as maneuverable as the biplanes, and it was also more challenging to fly, particularly for less experienced pilots. When World War II began, the P-26 was largely obsolete in comparison to the latest fighters of the time, and it saw limited action in the war. At the time of the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, the Army Air Corps had already phased out the P-26 in favor of more advanced aircraft like the P-40 Warhawk. However, some P-26s were still in service with the U.S. Army's Philippine Department and saw combat against Japanese aircraft in the early days of the war. The P-26 also saw export success, with aircraft being sold to China, Guatemala, and the Philippines. Chinese P-26s saw combat against Japanese forces during the Second Sino-Japanese War in the late 1930s, while Guatemalan P-26s remained in service until the 1950s. The P-26s in the Philippines, like many of the American and Filipino forces on the islands, fought against overwhelming odds. Despite their best efforts, the P-26s suffered heavy losses, both from enemy action and from the challenges of maintaining and operating aging aircraft under wartime conditions. Similarly, in the late 1930s, the Chinese Air Force used P-26s in combat against the Japanese during the Second Sino-Japanese War. Although the Chinese pilots flew with bravery, their P-26s were outmatched by the more advanced Japanese fighters. Overall, while the P-26 Peashooter may not have seen extensive action in World War II, it was a critical stepping stone in the development of American fighter aircraft, bridging the gap between the biplanes of the 1920s and the high-performance monoplanes of World War II.